The powerful Alpha crashed my birthday party and demanded a wedding. The grand halls of Castle Virales glimmered in golden candlelight. Tonight, the air was alive with music, laughter, and the soft rustle of silk gowns as Princess Alara's 18th birthday celebration began. Courtiers bowed and whispered. Servants hurried past with trays of sparkling wine and silver plates, and the aroma of roasted meats and sweet pastries filled the air. Alara, with her long auburn hair braided with tiny silver ribbons, stood near the balcony, gazing at the gardens below. Her heart was heavy, though no one could see it. For years she had been told her life would be bound by duty, duty to her family, her kingdom, and the traditions that had ruled the line of Virales for centuries. Tonight, she longed only for a night of freedom, even if only for a few fleeting hours. The celebration had begun like any other royal gathering, a parade of noblemen offering gifts, each bowing with calculated respect. Music from the harpist filled the room, delicate notes dancing along the vaulted ceiling. Alara smiled politely, accepting the compliments with gentle grace, but even amidst the cheerful chatter, a part of her wondered, would something happen tonight that would change her life forever? And it did. A sudden hush fell over the hall. A heavy, commanding presence pressed through the doorway. Courtiers froze mid-step, glasses paused in midair. From the shadows of the archway, a figure emerged. Cloaked in dark robes that shimmered like the night sky, he moved with the confidence of someone who belonged to no one and nothing but himself. His eyes, sharp and dark as a raven's feather, scanned the hall with a mixture of calculation and amusement. It was Lord Kalen. Whispers spread like wildfire. Stories of him had traveled from distant lands to reach the castle walls. He was an alpha, a figure of supernatural power, feared and admired in equal measure. Many spoke of him as if he were more myth than man, an enigma whose name carried both terror and fascination. And now, here he was, standing in the center of Alara's birthday celebration, his gaze locked on her. Alara felt her chest tighten. She had never seen him in person, yet the stories, the warnings, the strange pull she had always felt, it all collided in that moment. Something about him seemed familiar, as if destiny itself had guided him to her side. "I have come," he said, his voice low, smooth, and powerful, "to claim what is mine." A murmur ran through the crowd. Courtiers exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to call guards or curtsy in fear. Ilara's father, King Roderick, stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Lord Kalen," he said carefully, "this is a private celebration. You are not welcome here." Kalen's lips curved into a faint, almost teasing smile. "On the contrary," he replied, "I have been waiting for this day for a very long time." Before anyone could react further, he approached Ilara. The room seemed to grow colder, though the candles still burned. Every step he took made the polished marble floor seem to tremble beneath his presence. He stopped just a few feet away from her, the court holding its collective breath. Ilara straightened her back, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Why are you here? What do you mean by claim?" Kalen's gaze softened, just enough to unsettle her. "Because the blood of kings and alphas flows in your veins," he said, "and our destinies are bound. You cannot deny what is written." Ilara's heart pounded. She had always been curious about the ancient legends that spoke of a curse and a powerful alpha, but she had never imagined it would touch her life, especially not in such a bold, terrifying way. I don't understand," she stammered. Kalen reached into his cloak and pulled out a small amulet. It shimmered with a faint light like a captured star. The moment he held it near her, it seemed to resonate with her very soul. "This belongs to you," he said, offering it. "It will bind us until the prophecy is fulfilled. You cannot run from this, Ilara. Your fate and mine are entwined." Gasps echoed around the hall. Ilara's fingers twitched toward the amulet, drawn by a force she could not resist. She felt the pull in her chest, in her bones, as if some hidden part of her recognized him, even though her mind screamed against it. King Roderick stepped between them, his face pale with alarm. "She will not." Kaelin's hand moved swiftly, a subtle flick, and the king froze in place, not harmed but immobilized by power. A hush fell over the room. The courtier's eyes widened in fear and awe. "You see," Kaelin said softly, turning to Alara, "I mean no harm to those who do not oppose me. But you cannot refuse me, not truly." Alara's pulse raced. Her mind was a storm of fear, confusion, and a strange, undeniable curiosity. She looked at Kaelin and saw the paradox within him. A dangerous predator, yes, but also someone who seemed incomplete, lonely, perhaps even haunted. And somewhere deep inside, a spark of something else, a strange recognition, an unexplained longing. She took a hesitant step back. I do not belong to anyone," she said firmly. "I am a princess, yes, but I am my own person. You cannot." Kaelin tilted his head, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. "You will learn soon enough that destiny cannot be denied. You are stronger than most and yet so fragile. That is why I am here, to protect you and to claim what the world has long awaited." He stepped closer, and for a moment the candles seemed to flicker wildly as though responding to his presence. The room's warmth vanished, replaced by a strange electric tension. The air around Alara thrummed, and she felt the weight of eyes upon her, eyes filled with expectation, fear, and awe. A servant finally regained courage and whispered, "Lord Kaelin, what will you do if she refuses?" Kaelin's eyes met the servant's, dark and unyielding. "Then I wait," he said simply, "and destiny waits with me." Alara's chest ached. There was a part of her that wanted to scream, to push him away, to flee. But another part, the part that was inexplicably drawn to him, wanted to understand, to follow, to see what lay beyond the fear. She did not yet know that the amulet in his hand was more than a symbol. It was a key, a thread linking her to a path she could neither escape nor fully comprehend. The courtiers began to whisper urgently, murmurs bouncing off the tall stone walls. The celebration had been stolen, replaced by a storm of tension that threatened to shatter the delicate peace of the night. Some guests tried to retreat to safer corners, while others stood frozen, caught between fear and fascination. Alara's father finally regained his composure, though his voice was firm, tinged with worry. "You cannot force her, Kaelin, not here, not like this." Kaelin's lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. "I do not need to force her," he said. "I need only to wait. Time, fate, and the bond we share will guide her. You will see, King Roderick. She will understand in time." Alara's fingers brushed against the amulet before she even realized it. The glow flared brighter, warm against her skin. A shiver ran down her spine, not of fear but of recognition, of connection, of a promise unspoken. It whispered secrets she did not yet know, secrets of blood, power, and destiny. For a moment, silence ruled the hall. The music had stopped. The candles flickered. Even the guards seemed to hesitate. Time itself felt suspended. Then, as though the world had taken a breath, Kaelin turned slightly and swept his cloak around him, his dark presence commanding the room. "You will see me again," he said softly, almost a whisper meant only for her. "And when you do, you will remember this moment. You will remember the choice you have yet to make." And with that, he stepped back, retreating into the shadows from which he had emerged. The glow of the amulet faded, but the warmth it left in Alara's hand remained. Her pulse raced, her thoughts tumbled, and the room seemed to tilt, caught between celebration and the lingering shadow of a power she did not yet understand. Alara looked out toward the balcony, her mind swirling. She knew that her life had changed forever in these few minutes. Something both terrifying and irresistible had entered her world, something that would not leave. She whispered to herself, almost in fear, almost in hope, Who are you, Lord Kaelin?" And as the distant sound of the castle bells rang midnight, she felt a single truth settle deep in her chest. This was only the beginning. The morning after her 18th birthday, the castle felt strangely quiet. The grand halls, which had been alive with laughter and music the night before, now echoed with only the footsteps of servants and the soft murmur of distant courtiers. Princess Ilara wandered through the corridors, her fingers brushing along the cold stone walls, her mind still restless with the memory of Lord Kaelin's arrival. He had not left, not entirely. Though the guests had long since departed, Kaelin remained, sitting in the shadowed library of the castle. The amulet he had given her pulsed faintly whenever she thought of him. It was as if it carried a heartbeat, not his, but something older, something connected to her very soul. Her father, King Roderick, had been furious the morning after. "He cannot stay," he had declared over breakfast, his voice trembling with anger and fear. "He has no right here. We are a royal family. This is a kingdom, not a playground for his powers." Ilara, though troubled, felt no anger toward him. She only felt the pull of Kaelin, the strange mixture of fear and curiosity that had gripped her the night before. Something deep inside her whispered that the Alpha had come for a reason beyond mere desire for power. I must understand him," she told her father softly, even though the words trembled with doubt. "There is something in him, something I cannot ignore." King Roderick shook his head, though his eyes softened. "Then be cautious, my daughter. Be careful of shadows that walk like men and of hearts that speak in riddles. You are young, and yet they say destiny never waits for anyone." The library was vast, lined with books as tall as men and as ancient as the stones themselves. Kaelin sat in a high-backed chair near the fireplace, a dark cloak falling around him. He looked up when she entered, his eyes like polished onyx, unreadable and yet full of intent. "You came," he said, as if surprised, though his voice carried no doubt. "I wondered if you would." I needed to speak with you," Ilara said, keeping her voice steady though her hands trembled. "Why are you here? Why did you come to my birthday and declare that we are bound?" Kaelin rose slowly, his tall form seeming to fill the room. "Because it is true," he said. "The prophecy speaks of you, Ilara of Virales. The blood of kings and alphas courses through your veins. One day your power will awaken fully, and when it does, the darkness will follow. I am here to protect you and to ensure that the bond is honored." Ilara frowned, her brows knitting together. "A bond? You speak as though I am not myself, as though I have no choice." "You always have a choice," Kaelin replied softly, taking a step closer. "But destiny is patient, and it is persistent. I am compelled to guide you even if you resist." She felt a shiver run down her spine. He was dangerous, yes, but not in the way others described him. There was no malice in his words. Only a strange, quiet intensity, as if he had lived centuries waiting for this moment. Ilara took a cautious step forward. "Then tell me," she said. "Tell me everything. I need to understand why this, why you, why us." Kaelin lowered himself onto a stool beside her, his gaze softening for the first time. "Long ago," he began, "there was a curse upon the bloodline of Virales. Your ancestors were warned that one day darkness would seek to swallow the kingdom, and only a union of royal and alpha blood could protect it. That is why I exist, why I was born, to guide, to protect, and to claim the bond that will keep the kingdom alive." Ilara's mind spun. "So this is why you demanded I marry you?" Kaelin shook his head. "Not demanded," he said gently. "I declared a truth, one I hoped you would see for yourself. The choice remains yours, but the danger cannot be ignored." The weight of his words pressed on her. She had always thought of her life in terms of duties, ceremonies, and appearances. But now she realized that her life, her very soul, was tied to something far greater, far darker than she had ever imagined. For hours they spoke. Kaelin shared stories of the Alpha line, of powers that could bend shadow and flame, of enemies that lurked beyond sight. He spoke of the prophecy, of the night when darkness would rise, and of the bond that could either save or destroy the kingdom. And all the while, Ilara felt the pull between them grow. She tried to resist it, to focus on reason, on duty, on what she knew to be safe. But every time their hands brushed over a page of an ancient manuscript, every time their eyes met, she felt the tension coil tighter in her chest, a fire that was not fear, not anger, but something she could not name. Days passed, and Kalen did not leave. The castle adapted to his presence, though whispers of unease rippled through the halls. Courtiers feared him, servants whispered his name, and even the king watched with growing suspicion. Yet Alara found herself drawn to him more with each passing day. One evening, the sun set over the castle walls, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. Alara found Kalen on the balcony, his silhouette stark against the dying light. He was watching the horizon, as if waiting for something she could not see. "I can't sleep," she said, stepping beside him. Kalen's gaze softened, and for a moment he seemed less the powerful alpha, less the supernatural force, and more human. "Neither can I," he admitted. "The curse stirs. Forces you cannot see and enemies that plot in shadow are moving even now. Tonight may bring change." Alara swallowed hard. "I don't understand. How can I face something I cannot even see?" "You are stronger than you know," Kalen said, his voice a low reassurance that made her heart ache. "The blood of kings flows in you, but the courage of an alpha flows in me. Together, we can withstand the darkness, but it will not be easy. You will need to trust me, even when fear tells you otherwise." She looked at him, searching his eyes. Trust was not a word she had ever spoken lightly, yet something about him, about the way he spoke, demanded it. And against all reason, she felt herself wanting to believe him. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept across the balcony, scattering loose ribbons and the last petals of summer roses. The amulet around her neck glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Alara instinctively reached for it. Kalen's eyes followed the glow. "It senses you," he said. "It senses the awakening of your power. Soon you will feel it fully. Soon you will understand why we are bound." The words sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but the sense of foreboding made her hesitate. Something was coming, something that neither of them could ignore. The castle doors creaked violently. From the darkness below, a figure darted through the corridors. A shadow, quick and silent, moved like a wraith, stopping only when Kalen's presence filled the hall. He stood suddenly, his cloak sweeping behind him as he moved toward the stairs. Alara followed, her pulse racing. "What is it?" she asked. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "An intruder," he said. "One of many who seek to test the bond, to find weakness. You must stay behind me." The intruder leapt into the light, revealing a mask and a cloak dark as midnight. They moved with speed and precision, clearly trained. Kalen's hand rose, and the air around him shimmered with power. With a flick of his wrist, a barrier of shadow lighted the corridor. The intruder stumbled back, surprised, and then vanished in a swirl of smoke. Alara's knees trembled. Who was that?" "An omen," Kalen said quietly, turning to her. "A warning. The darkness is watching. They know the bond exists and they will try to sever it. You must be prepared. You must awaken your power before it is too late." Alara's mind swirled with fear and determination. She had always imagined danger as something distant, something that happened to others. But now it had arrived, and it demanded action. She realized that she could not rely solely on Kalen. She would have to rise to meet the challenge herself. The night stretched on, with Kalen teaching her small exercises of control, of focus, of harnessing her innate strength. Her magic was faint at first, flickers of light and warmth, but it grew with each attempt. Kalen was patient, guiding her, praising her, and sometimes, for brief moments, allowing himself to seem vulnerable, sharing fragments of a past filled with pain and loneliness. Alara began to understand him in ways she had not expected. Beneath his power and dominance, there was a heart that had suffered, a loneliness that mirrored her own. The bond between them deepened, not just prophecy or duty, but understanding and a strange, quiet longing that neither could yet name. As dawn approached, the first light of morning brushing the castle walls, Alara stood at the balcony again, the amulet warm against her chest. Kalen appeared beside her silently, his hand brushing against hers. Neither spoke at first, the weight of what had been shared settling over them. Finally, Kalen broke the silence. "Tomorrow, you will meet the first true test," he said. "The darkness will not wait, and neither can we. Are you ready?" Alara looked out at the horizon at the first hints of sunlight painting the clouds. She felt fear, yes, but also a spark of courage she had never known. She nodded. "I will try," she said. "I will not fail." Kalen's eyes softened, almost a smile touching his lips. "You will not be alone. I will stand with you, always." But neither of them could know, as shadows gathered in the castle's farthest halls, that this night was only the beginning. The darkness had taken notice, and the bond they shared would soon be tested in ways that could shatter both hearts, or forge them forever. The sun had barely risen over Castle Virales, painting the walls in soft gold and amber, but the calm of the morning was deceptive. Inside the castle, tension lingered like a shadow that refused to leave. Princess Alara paced the balcony, her thoughts heavy. Kalen had been silent since the previous night, his eyes distant, as if something weighed upon him that he could not share. Her hands gripped the railing tightly. The amulet around her neck pulsed faintly, reminding her that the bond they shared was more than words or choice. It was living, breathing, and alive with power she barely understood. Kalen approached her quietly. "You are awake early," he said, his voice low, careful. "I cannot sleep," Alara admitted. "I keep thinking about last night and what is coming. The darkness, it is closer than I realized." Kalen nodded slowly. "Yes, it watches, waiting. The moment you awaken your power fully, it will sense you and it will move. That is why you must be prepared, and that is why I must be honest with you." Alara turned to him, sensing the gravity in his tone. "Honest? What do you mean?" Kalen's gaze fell, and for a brief moment the powerful Alpha seemed human, vulnerable. "There is more to this bond than the prophecy tells. My ancestors cursed me centuries ago, tying my fate to the survival of this kingdom. I have carried it alone, waiting for the one who could awaken the power and break the curse, but the cost may be greater than you know." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. "What cost?" Kalen looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "If you fail, if the bond is broken, both you and I could be lost. The darkness would consume the kingdom, and I would be trapped in my own prison forever." Her chest tightened. "Then you've been carrying this burden alone," Kalen nodded. "For centuries, in a way. I have lived through battles and betrayals, waiting for the one who could complete what I cannot do alone. That one is you, Alara." Alara's heart ached at the truth in his words. She had thought he was a figure of pride and dominance, unapproachable, untouchable. But here he stood, a being of immense power and equally immense loneliness. And she felt it, an urge to protect him as much as he had protected her, to bridge the gap between them with trust and courage. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted. "I barely understand my own power. How can I face the darkness if I don't even know what I can do?" Kalen stepped closer, his presence comforting yet electrifying. "You will learn. The bond will guide you, but you must have faith in yourself and in me." Alara nodded, though doubt still lingered. Together they began training. Each day, Kalen taught her to feel the energy around her, to channel it through the amulet, to awaken small flashes of her latent power. At first, it was clumsy. Sparks of light fizzled out, shadows shifted unpredictably, and her confidence faltered. But Kalen's patience never wavered. He guided her with quiet encouragement, offering praise for every small success and correcting gently when she faltered. Over time, the exercises became less about magic and more about trust. Kalen taught her to sense his presence in the energy that flowed through the castle, to align her will with his. Each session was exhausting, but every moment together deepened the bond between them. The tension that had sparked on her birthday had grown into something more subtle, more intimate, an unspoken connection that neither dared to name aloud. One evening, the castle was bathed in silver moonlight, the corridors empty except for their footsteps. Kaelin led Alara to a hidden chamber deep within the castle, a room she had never seen before. The walls were carved with ancient symbols, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "This is where the prophecy begins," Kaelin explained, his voice echoing softly. "Here you will feel the full weight of the bond. Here you will awaken the power you carry." Alara swallowed hard. The air felt thick with anticipation, as though the room itself held its breath. She stepped forward, feeling the amulet grow warmer against her chest. Kaelin's hand brushed hers and a shock of energy passed between them, not painful but awakening, stirring something deep within her. "Focus," he instructed. "Feel the connection. The power flows from the bloodline through the bond and into your hands. Trust yourself and trust me." Alara closed her eyes, letting the energy course through her. It was strange and beautiful, a mixture of warmth and fire, light and shadow. She felt her heartbeat synchronize with Kaelin's presence, felt the threads of the bond pull tight, guiding her movements. Shadows in the room shifted, responding to her will, and light shimmered from the amulet, wrapping her in a cocoon of energy. When she opened her eyes, Kaelin's expression had softened into awe. "You did it," he whispered. "You are ready but not fully. There is more, and the darkness will test you, soon." Alara nodded, her chest still racing. I understand now why you came, why you stayed. The bond, it's real, stronger than I imagined." Kaelin reached out and gently held her hand, his eyes dark and serious. "Stronger than either of us expected. But with strength comes danger. With connection comes vulnerability. The darkness will seek to exploit both." Their moment was broken by a sudden, sharp knock at the chamber door. Kaelin tensed and Alara's pulse quickened. The knock came again, urgent and heavy. Kaelin moved to the door, opening it cautiously. A guard stood there, eyes wide with fear. "My lord princess," he stammered. "There has been an attack. Shadows, creatures, they tried to enter the castle during the night." Alara's stomach dropped. "Shadows, creatures, how is that possible?" Kaelin's jaw tightened. "It is the darkness. It tests boundaries before it strikes. It knows you are awakening, and it will not stop until it either claims you or is stopped." Without another word, Kaelin led her back to the main hall. The courtyard had been disturbed. Stones were scattered, scorch marks burned into the ground, and the faintest traces of shadow lingered, curling at the edges of the moonlight. The castle had survived, but barely. Alara's hands clenched into fists. "I thought we were safe," she said, her voice trembling. "We are never completely safe," Kaelin replied, his tone grim. "But together we can face this. You are ready to face more than shadows now, Alara. You are ready to face yourself and the bond we share." The days that followed were filled with preparation and tension. Alara trained relentlessly, learning to summon her strength and focus her energy. Kaelin remained at her side, guiding her, but also revealing parts of himself. Memories of past battles, of losses, of a life spent waiting for someone who could complete the bond. Through it all, the bond deepened. There were fleeting touches, accidental brushes of the hand, moments when their eyes lingered too long on one another. Each touch carried a charge, a reminder of their connection and of the strange attraction that neither could deny. Yet both remained aware of the danger around them, and of the fragile balance that could not be broken. One night, as Alara practiced alone in the moonlit courtyard, Kaelin appeared silently beside her. "The darkness approaches faster than I anticipated," he said. "Soon you will face your first true test, and it will demand everything from you: strength, courage, and trust." Alara turned to him, her eyes wide. "I don't know if I can do it," she admitted. "I don't know if I'm ready to face it." Kaelin stepped closer, his hand brushing her shoulder. "You are stronger than you know, and you will not be alone. The bond guides us, and together we will survive what is coming." The wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest whisper of shadow. The amulet glowed faintly against her chest, and Alara felt the pull of destiny tighten around her. She looked at Kalen, seeing not just the powerful alpha, but the man who had waited, who had guided her, who had trusted her even before she trusted herself. I trust you, she said softly. Kalen's eyes darkened with emotion, but before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from the castle gates. Shadows twisted at the edges of the walls, and figures cloaked in darkness surged forward. The first true attack had begun. Kalen drew his cloak around him, his presence radiating power. "Stay close to me," he commanded. "Do not let go of the bond, and do not fear. We will face this together." Alara nodded, feeling the bond pulse through her chest, steady and strong. She took a deep breath, summoning the courage that had been growing within her, and stepped forward to stand beside Kalen. The night air trembled with energy as shadowed figures approached, but Alara felt something she had never felt before: strength, purpose, and the unbreakable link between her and Kalen. She was no longer a princess merely bound by duty. She was part of something greater, something powerful, something that could defy even the darkness. And as the first clash of shadow against light rang out across the castle courtyard, Alara realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The first light of dawn spilled over the walls of Castle Virales, soft and golden, but it did little to ease the tension that gripped the kingdom. Princess Alara and Lord Kalen stood side by side on the balcony, the amulet glowing faintly against her chest. The events of the night had left them weary, but the shadows still lingered, twisting at the edges of the horizon. Kalen's eyes scanned the distant hills, alert and calculating. "They are coming," he said quietly. "The darkness knows we are awake. It will test us to the limits. Today, the bond will face its first true challenge." Alara tightened her grip on the railing, feeling the pulse of the amulet synchronize with her heartbeat. "I am ready," she said, though her voice betrayed the tremor of fear. I will not fail." Kalen turned to her, his gaze softening. For the first time, the powerful alpha seemed entirely human, vulnerable, and real. "You will not be alone," he said. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The castle gates creaked as the first shadows approached. Dark figures moved with unnatural speed, shapes that seemed to flicker and twist, their eyes glinting like shards of black glass. Alara's stomach tightened, but she drew a deep breath, summoning the power that had grown within her. "Focus," Kalen instructed, standing firmly beside her. "The bond strengthens your power. Feel it, channel it, let it guide you." Alara closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the amulet flow through her veins. Light shimmered faintly from her hands, wrapping around the dark figures as they drew closer. Kalen moved beside her, his presence steadying her, his own power surging to meet the threat. Together, their energy intertwined, a shield of light and shadow that held back the advancing darkness. The first wave of shadows collided with their barrier, dissipating into smoke and whispers. But the darkness was persistent and more figures surged forward, moving faster and more purposefully. Alara felt her strength falter, but Kalen's hand on her steadied her. "You are stronger than you think," he whispered. "Do not doubt yourself, trust the bond." She inhaled deeply, centering herself. The amulet pulsed brighter, reacting to her confidence, and she pushed forward. Energy flowed from her, weaving with Kalen's own, forming ribbons of light that lashed at the shadows, scattering them like leaves in a storm. But then, from the far edge of the courtyard, a single shadow emerged, larger and darker than the rest. Its shape seemed humanoid, but its movements were unnatural, twisting and fluid. Its eyes glowed with malice, fixed on Alara. "That one," Kalen muttered, his expression darkening. "It is the heart of the darkness. It has come to test you, to break the bond." Alara's pulse raced. She had trained, she had prepared, but now that the true test stood before her, fear clawed at her chest. I don't know if I can." "You can," Kalen interrupted, his voice firm and commanding. "I am here, we are one. Together we are unstoppable, trust me." The shadow lunged forward, faster than she could react. Kalen stepped in front of her, raising his hands. Dark energy collided with his own, striking sparks from the ground. Alara felt the bond between them tighten, pulling her into alignment with Kalen's power. She raised her hands, focusing her energy, and the amulet blazed like a small sun. The shadow recoiled, hissing as light wrapped around it. Alara could feel its strength, the pure intent of its malice, but she refused to yield. Step by step, she pushed forward, her power growing, feeding off Kalen's strength and the bond that connected them. "Now, Alara," Kalen shouted, "put everything into the bond." She closed her eyes, summoning every ounce of courage, every shred of focus, and let the energy flow through her entirely. Light poured from her hands, brighter than the rising sun, merging with Kalen's own power. Together, they formed a wave of brilliance that struck the shadow with unrelenting force. The figure shrieked, a sound that seemed to shake the earth itself, and then dissolved into a swirl of smoke and whispers. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the courtyard. The other shadows had fled, unable to withstand the bond. Alara fell to her knees, exhausted but alive, her chest heaving. Kalen knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder, grounding her, supporting her. "You did it," he whispered. "You are stronger than you imagined." Alara looked up at him, seeing not just the alpha who had demanded her hand, but the man who had trusted her, guided her, and stood by her side. "We did it," she corrected softly. "Together." Kalen's gaze softened, almost tender, and for a moment words were unnecessary. The bond between them had proven unbreakable, and in that moment fear and doubt fell away, replaced by trust, respect, and something deeper, something neither of them could yet name but both felt profoundly. They stood together, watching the first light of dawn fill the courtyard. The darkness had been pushed back, at least for now. The bond was strong, their power awakened, and the kingdom had survived. But Kalen's expression darkened once more. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The darkness will return, and next time it will be stronger. You must continue to grow, Alara. Your power, our bond, must be ready." Alara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. The training, the fear, the nights of doubt, all of it had led to this moment. She could not rest yet. The bond demanded vigilance. But she also understood something new. She was not alone. Kalen had always been beside her, guiding her, but now she was beside him as well. As the day began, they returned to the castle, where the courtiers and guards greeted them with awe and respect. News of the attack had spread, and while fear lingered, there was also hope. The princess and the alpha had faced the darkness and survived. King Roderick approached them, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and concern. "You both survived," he said. "The shadows, the darkness, I feared the worst." Alara bowed respectfully. "We faced it together, father. The bond, it is stronger than the shadows." Kalen inclined his head toward the king. "The princess is brave and powerful," he said. "Together, we are prepared to protect the kingdom." The king studied them both, his gaze lingering on the amulet that pulsed against Alara's chest. Slowly, he nodded. "Then may the bond continue to guide you, and may the kingdom survive as it always has, through strength and courage." Days passed, and the castle settled into a fragile peace. Alara continued her training, growing stronger, more confident in her abilities. Kalen remained at her side, guiding, teaching, but also allowing her to grow, to stand as his equal. Their bond deepened, unspoken words lingering in glances, in brushes of the hand, in shared silences. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink, Kalen led Alara to the highest tower of the castle. The wind tugged at her hair and the horizon stretched endlessly before them. "It is beautiful," Alara whispered. Kalen's eyes softened. "Not as beautiful as you," he said quietly. Alara turned to him, a flush rising to her cheeks. "Kalen," he raised his hand, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I never asked for much in my long life," he admitted. "But you are the bond I was meant to find. The one who awakens the power, the courage, and the hope I thought I had lost." Alara's chest tightened. I feel the same. You've been by my side, guiding me, trusting me, believing in me when I doubted myself. I don't know what I would have done without you." For a long moment they simply stood there, the wind carrying the quiet hum of the kingdom below. Their bond was more than prophecy now. It was choice, respect, trust, and something deeper, unspoken but undeniable. But even in that quiet moment, the air carried a subtle warning. From the horizon, faint shadows stirred, distant yet certain. The darkness had not been defeated, it had been delayed. Kalen tightened his grip on her hand. "We will face it," he said. "Together always, no matter what comes." Alara nodded, her heart full, her resolve unshakable. "Together," she echoed. And as dawn broke fully, casting golden light across the castle and kingdom, they stood hand in hand, ready to face whatever future awaited. The prophecy had begun, the bond had awakened, and the heart of the kingdom beat strong once more. Yet in the distance, the faintest whisper of shadow lingered. The bond is strong, but the true test is yet to come. Alara and Kalen did not falter. They had faced fear, darkness, and doubt. They had found strength in each other, and they would not let the world, or fate, break them. The dawn was theirs, but the story of the bond, of love, and of courage was only just beginning.